Hola, hello, I am Pepe the King Prono Guy.
Oh, that's so f***ing cool. And that's how we completely destroy a power board on a Leader 120. Nice.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm waiting for parts to come in. I've got an interesting frame coming in we're going to build up and some other things, but they haven't arrived yet. So I was thinking, how can I give back to the community some other way while we're waiting for this? So I thought I would do a video on how to create your own parts for 3D printing for RC drone quadcopter. I do a lot of that stuff myself. I find it really fun, and it's quite a lot easier than you may expect to get into it in a minimalistic early kind of way. So while we're watching Klaus Kitten do his LiPo battery test, I'll remind you, don't forget about the Leader 120 giveaway. That's going to happen on the 13th. I'll pick the winner. So you can still get in there, read the rules, make sure you subscribe, and comment on that video, not this one to enter. It'll be in your upper right. But let's go ahead and get started. So to get started, you can get a very small, simple program on the web called TinkerCAD, and it's just tinkercad.com. And sign up; it's absolutely free. You get your own account and your own place to save all your tinkering. It doesn't ask for a lot; simply a few bits, birthday, thing like that, your email address, and a password, and you'll be set up. I can't remember if it does send a confirmation email, so make sure you use a real email. I've never received anything spammy after signing up for this at all, so it's very, very safe. So I, of course, already have an account set up that we'll go into and take a peek at. Here it comes. So, as you can see in mine, I've built a lot of things. I'm currently working on one of those hovercrafts that I'm going to try to take the Warlock and turn it into a hovercraft, seeing how that thing pissed me off. I can't say that enough times, but camera mounts and things like that, spinners for my extruder on my printer. That was a frame I built for the Warlark, sorry, the Oversky Warlark, and some shelving I've been trying to design that's infinitely expandable to stack my quads on as my desk becomes smaller and smaller day by day. But we're going to show you how to make a mount. So you simply click Create a New, and then you'll see your table is there, and you can grab it with your left click and slide it around with Shift left click. Your center mouse button zooms in and out. You also have these options on the left, but on the right are your objects that you can use to create things with. The clear meshed ones are kind of like a knockout, if you can imagine. You're working with solids and knockouts, no theoretical like scissors or knife to cut with, so you're knocking things out with other objects. It's pretty easy once you've got the hang of it. But on the left, as I mentioned, we've got the ability still to zoom out. We've got the ability to flip our platform in a couple different ways. You have this little block at the top that says top left, and so that just helps you look. Like I said, I use Shift right mouse button to grab and spin things around as it may be that I need. So, but like I said, today I'll just do you a quick camera mount for, let's just say in this case, a Firefly or a GoPro Session, some square like, your SQ, if you're trying to use that, um, we'll do it that way. So first thing, you want to start out with is a simple like square. And when you're dealing with something like the square, you have two areas to work with sizing. Well, three. You have your width, height, and length. And I'm just going to set those in arbitrary, numbers that seem about right for, let's say, a Firefly. So what we do is we get our caliper out, or whatever you want to use to measure with, and I'm measuring the actual device. And what we want to do is think about how thick our inner walls are going to be. If we want those inner walls, let's say 2 millimeters all the way around, that means we need to make our knockout, our initial object needs to be 4 millimeters larger than the object we're dealing with. So what we'll do is we'll want to make it bigger or smaller, depending on if I've made that first box the 4 bigger. We'll make a second box that is 4 smaller all the way around. And what we're going to do once we've set those sizes to be 4 smaller all the way around, we're going to turn it into a knockout. Um, Now, if you want a side piece to have a big opening on the right side to pop it in, which we'll want, we'll actually want the width to we'll want to add some width to create that knockout. So what you want to do is you make your clear box a little bit wider, maybe 6 millimeters wider, so that it pops out the side. We're going to grab our raising tool, that arrow, we're going to change that to 2, and what that will do is that will make our bottom walls 2. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take and select both items and use our alignment tool. And we're going to come here and we're going to align the edge. Now, obviously, that would just knock it out completely. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab it and I'm going to slide it over 2 millimeters. And that way we get our edge wall back to 2 millimeters. So if you can see there, it's showing on the bottom right a number, that negative. So I'm trying to pull it to -2, which will give me proper walls. Now, sometimes it takes a couple times to do this because you screw up or whatever, but as you can see here, I'm going to grab it, I'm going to slide it, and then you can also just jump in there and click -2, and that'll give you what you need as far as moving it over -2. Make sure when you click on the numbers that your mouse doesn't slide over, because when your mouse slides over, there's the one I wanted. When your mouse slides over, it lets go of the numbers so you can't type it in. So now you can see I'm over 2, I'm up 2, and I'm ready to slide them together. So I'm going to center using my alignment tool, and that's giving me my box, as you can see. And I don't want to click the center of the other part or it would take my knockout and ruin it. So now, as you can see, we have solids on our outsides and we have our big window to slide our camera into. So once you've got that set, you group them, and once you've grouped them, that will knock the knockout from the solid. And now we have a 2 millimeter walled box all the way around except for our giant opening. So now let's make a lens hole. So we grab a mesh circle, we're going to rotate it around to 90 degrees. Now there's several rotation things, you just got to make sure you're grabbing the right one. And sometimes when you let go of that, the number will change on you. So make sure you're checking that and just put it to the right degree you want. So I've got a 90-degree hole, right? So let's say we're going to measure our lens on our camera and get the right number that we want. We found out it's, let's say, I don't know, what did I put in here, 8 by 8 or 13 by 13 circle or hole that we need for our camera. And then the height and the width is what's making that maintain its circular object. Yeah, and not the length, sorry, because I had originally touched the length. So if I look at my original box and we're going to use a line, and we align middle, that's going to raise me properly to where I need to be, middle height, then we do middle width, right, and then we are set to slide it in and make a window knockout, a hole knockout for our camera lens. So You can use your left and right arrows, but that setting for how far it moves is in your right hand corner. You can change from really micro moving to large movements, and I usually keep it on off, but in that case we just raise it so we can slide it over faster and maintain. That is the best way to maintain where your object was. So now you can see we have a nice centered hole for our lens. And let's move into knocking out a slot for our SD card. So we set a width that, again, use your measuring tool, your ruler, whatever, to see how many millimeters or centimeters you're working with. This is in millimeters, so you'll have to make that translation yourself. But again, I'm throwing arbitrary numbers at it to what size it is. But let's say that's the size of our slot for our card. Looked a little fat, so we'll skinny it up a little bit more. And that slot there, let's say most of the SD slots you'll note have like a thumb indentation into them. So you can take and you can add other shapes like that solid, and you can add that to your object and start creating a custom shape out of it. Like I said, in this particular piece of software, you don't have freeform drawing, but every shape just about is available to you to create your own shape as if you drew it. So what I'm going to do is take this half circle, make its sizes correct. It's going to go against that object so that it creates a square with that thumb feel about it. So I'm going to set my width, my height, and my length uh, all even at this point. The height I should set to the height of the other object that I'm going to attach to. And then I start bringing them together, and you can start reducing the width to make the shape of your half circle more like a thumb feel. Um, but then I align the two parts and realize that I have made it too short, and I bring it up just in size somewhere to match the other. And then what I'm going to do is start, as you can see, I still have my sliding tool on off, so I'm going to start sliding these two objects together. And in this case, you can see through them, so I'm kind of making it to where one goes into the other so that I know that when I put this in there, I won't have some weird slice in the middle. So I'm making sure these two pieces are as of one. And then, again, to make an object into one, we group them. And there we have our square with a thumb. Now, if you don't necessarily like it, you can still make it even smaller by going back to it. But I'm pretty content with that. This is just for show and tell. So what we're going to do now is, of course, we're going to measure and see exactly how high do I need to have. As you can see, I didn't, after all, like it. And by the way, yes, I am doing the voiceover after the fact because it's just easier than doing two things at once. So, as you can see, if I try to align these with any of the line tools we have there, we're not going to have any success other than centering it height and width. So that's where you're going to have to come in there and do the manually sliding together that I mentioned. So we're just sliding them together with our left arrow. Again, I'm merging them to where I know they're actually merged. Highlight them both, group them, turn them into a mesh or a knockout, and then I'm bringing them over. Now I would take my tool and I would measure, let's say, my camera and see exactly where that is. The measurement in this, unfortunately, doesn't do like center center ID. It's on the top of the OD, the outside diameter. So when you measure your object, make sure you're measuring to the top of where that SD slot is. And again, I just changed my thing so I could slide this a bit quicker. Now that's obviously going to be way too low, so we'll just drag it up. Again, pretending as if we had the number. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a quick USB hole for plugging in your USB wire to get your videos off of your camera. Now, most of the time, all these cameras, at least I've experienced, I don't need to take the card out of. So my card goes in for lifetime, and sometimes I'll even not even include that card slot to make sure that my card doesn't eject. I'll just not make it and just make this USB adapter um, cut out so that I can plug in my USB right to the drone or quad with the with it plugged in uh, right there on my desk without even having to take it out. So once again, we'll bring it over. We'll grab our height that we've measured. In that case, that actually, maybe I told you wrong there. That looks like that's measuring off the bottom of it. You just make sure everything, because it will kind of jank around on you. It's kind of weird. It will jump around on where it's measuring, I've noticed, depending on what objects you have seamed together. So just make sure you're looking at that height and where it's measuring to so you can match it on your object. So what I'm doing just to try to get some alignment on these two, I'm taking my alignment tool and just hitting that outside edge and making sure those outside edges are aligned and accidentally sliding that way out. Once again, Control Z to back out of what you just stupidly did. So again, going to change mine to a little higher so I can slide it in. And now we have our USB notch in our camera holder. All right, so what I'm doing here is um, recycling objects. So let's say for fun, you got an object that's close enough of a knockout. You want to Control D, and that will duplicate the object. And it usually duplicates it right on top of itself. So once you've done that, you just click again on where the object was, and you can pull it out. So what I did was I just basically recycled, knowing that the sides are the same, that hole that I made for the USB on the side, I'm using that to put that where my power button belongs at the top, instead of, you could take your time and make a circle or whatever it is for the power button, but usually there's a display and the power button up there at the top, so you can just utilize that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create some small walls on the outside so that if you've dealt with these holders before, when you push your camera in, it usually has something that snaps and holds it in. So for us, I'm going to make these outer walls that are going to hold our part inside by being a little bit deeper than the original. So we're just taking our height, our width and our height of our walls, and we're adding it to a new solid bar. I'm gonna bring it up to the top, which is a good place because I can see better there to start with. Um, check our heights. Um, find that our object was actually the below the field of the table, which is not cool. Um, and then we're going to make sure our heights match so that everything's straight in that sense, and then start setting up our sizes here. The smaller the object gets, obviously, the harder it is to get a hold of things. And you can see when I was looking at the other, the measurement actually was to the top of the object, and this is what I was talking about. And this one's actually at the bottom of the object. So in some cases, this case isn't necessary that we needed to calculate things, but in some cases you will. So just, pull up your calculator, take the total of one minus the other, get your new height. Um, Again, start pulling the arrow just a little bit, and then you can actually type it in, that number that you needed, and then you are leveled. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring that in, um, and match that up on and attach it to the side. Um, and then we are going to work with some of our measurements and such to get everything the way we want it. And of course, if we want a lip, I'm going to need to make that height and depth, that the depth of the object deeper than our previous wall so we can create a lip. Now, once I've got that piece set to the way I want it, again, you're tinkering as it goes, hence the name of the software. So pardon my tinkering of numbers in my mind working, but what we're going to do now, once we have this, this plate, if you will, set, is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it, so that I can use it for the other three walls. So again, Control D, click it again, move it out here somewhere, out of your way. Now, if you duplicate the one you just slid out, like this, I'll show you. What it does is it duplicates it the distance you duplicated and move the other one. So it's usually best to duplicate off the original so you don't have to go chasing around where your parts are. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our other walls and we're going to, in this case, again, rotate them 90. And again, as I mentioned, sometimes on those rotations, your mouse moves at the last minute and changes the number. So keep your eye on that number over there to make sure it ends up being what you want. So we're going to zero this one down to 0 to the table, and we're going to bring it in. We know it's the right width, etc., etc., and it's going to make our little lip. We use our alignment tool to center these things so that our ends are straight, as you can see, and then we're going to bring in our walls. Now these are going to be shorter, obviously, so we're going to need to click our back area there and see what our height is again, which we probably should have remembered from the last time. Come over here, we're going to click, set our height. Having zeroed it on the board, it's all set. Again, going to do the same to over here. And then we're going to bring them over and rough them in here. Drag them as close as I can, but otherwise we're going to use some other tools. Our alignment tools, as always. So, as you can see, sometimes it's tough not to touch the wrong thing. But zero everything out to the board, and then we're going to grab our alignment tool, and we're going to line everything right on that edge. Boop. And then that will start pulling everything together so that the seams are good. Tinkering right here. Don't remember what I was doing. But next we should be back in the alignment tool here. There we go. Now I take my head out of my arse. So we're going to line the edges. That way all of our edges are clean, and we have basically all of our lips in place. So somewhere along the line, I'm not sure, and I even missed it rewatching it here. Somewhere along the line, I lost my right side, my left side there. I don't quite know where it went, but when you look inside, you can see the wall that's going to hold things together inside the object. And then I look in the back there, and I missed where I missed that. It was there. Now it's missing. I have no clue where it went. But nonetheless, we'll create a new one and put it together. So Uh, we'll just add a new one by copying the left-hand side and put it on the right. But it took me a minute. I'm looking, going, where'd it go? If anybody saw where that went, tell me, because I don't know where the hell it went. It's not inside the object that I can find, and it's not here either. So I don't know what happened, but I lost it. But you can lose things inside of things if they're solids. Especially if you've grouped them. But as you can see, I just duped one out, grabbed it, slid it over, grabbed my alignment tool, say to the right edge with everything selected, and now we can look through the holes and we can see we've got all of our edges. So in a nutshell, we have the basis of our camera mount. We've got ability to slide it in to the width it's supposed to be and have the outer edges be a little bit longer so that it basically clicks in and holds in, and everything. So we're going to take all these pieces and we group them so that we have one, as you can see, one object. And that is our mount. Now to the next step of the stand, you simply go up and what angle are you looking to set your view at? So I'm gonna do 25 for fun. I'm not, as everybody knows, I'm not a Mr. Crazy Pilot. So for me, I don't need extreme angles, but I have been known to make them for other people. So a mount is simple enough, and again, you can take and look at, don't feel bad at looking at what somebody else made as far as how did they make their stand, how did they, this or that in their design, and modify as you will, or don't modify at all, and then just make it yourself for fun using the measurements you need for your object. So what we're going to do is I set the width to match the camera mount, or the camera holder. I set the, the width. So the depth or thickness, well, actually the depth is what I set to match, and the thickness is small, 2 millimeters or whatever. I'm going to print these in TPU, which has flexibility and is not just going to snap for being thin like a PLA or a ABS would, the hard plastics that might snap. This is not going to snap. This is going to be rubbery, so my walls can be fairly thin. I've seen camera mounts walls that are as thin as like 1 millimeter. Like it's basically, I don't even know, it's barely holding itself together with 2 layers of print. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat that for the bottom plate, making it 1.5 to 2. Its width to match the stand, and then I'm going to go to my alignment tools, and as we have done before, quickly center it and set the outside edges. It doesn't have to be on center, but it's, on center is a good starting point. So right there, we're going to center that way, and then we're going to click our edge tool there. So it is actually edged, but it's not tall enough to connect the objects. So what you can do is either bring it up and connect it, like that. But knowing that every bit like that you're doing, you're adding weight, be it a gram or whatever. So what I'm going to do is we'll just shorten our length to no longer match the mount. Bringing that in, then we'll take and we'll bring our base into it, grabbing all of our things again, quickly using our alignment tool to make sure everything's edged and centered. And now you can see that that wall is up into the base. Or you can do it by sliding it over, clicking those two pieces and sliding them into the one. Now, what you'll note is you see there that bit of this part coming out on the other part. Now, if that happened, that's going to prevent your camera from going in. So you have to be super careful, when you're checking that to, kind of slide it to where that becomes out a little bit and then slide it back till it disappears. So once again, because we already know that's a pretty decent height, I can do a Control D and make a duplicate of this part. Sorry for all the psychedelic spinning, but the view I was in was, see, it's making it very weird in a plane. It's just because I'm too close to the table. but I'm kind of old and blind. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our same aligning tools with this part. We're going to get that center aligned to it, and then we'll hit the edge and it'll drag everything over. And once again, you can see with this, my base table is long, but I knew that going into it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to drag this in to get a feel for how far I'm going, and then what we'll do is we'll change our base plate size. So I already know I'm going to come in, a couple, 3, 4 millimeters, so I can go ahead and lower that part. So change this. Now that would be fully extended out. I'm sorry. That would be me showing you if you wanted to have it fully extended out, but there's no reason in the world you need that. I mean, there is structure behind this, but it doesn't matter on this particular case. So we're going to shorten everything up, and we're going to start bringing the parts in. Now you could bring it in way more than this, even if you wanted to. You could bring it in a whole lot tighter, even toward the center of everything. That's really up to you on how it is. But otherwise, for our needs at the moment, there you go. You have a 25-degree camera mount built, ready in TinkerCAD, and we can start getting toward, okay, how do we get it out and start slicing it and to be able to use it here in a second. But first I was doing something. I don't know exactly what I was doing. Let's see here. Oh, I know what I was doing. So if 25 degrees was not, or let's say you want to build a bunch of different angles, what you want to do is come in and we will ungroup our bottom 3 pieces. We did the bottom plate and the 2 sides, and pull our part off, right? We're going to do a Control C to copy it. Then here I found a few, which is good sometimes when you come back to Control C. You can see some of the goof ups you made and correct them. There was something I had noticed I had done wrong, just in the way the parts were laying together. So I did that, and I came in to fix all that out. See that line there? That's what I was talking about as far as getting things where you don't want that there. So I just drop it down just a little bit so it's still connected, and we get rid of that line in there, so that way we're connected but not all the way through. So again, I'll regroup this one because it's done. I'll forget to name it, but I'll show you naming it in a minute. I have my copied version of just the camera mount, not the angle, and we'll come over and we'll create a new design and Control what is it? Control C, Control V to paste it in, and then we know we're at 25 degrees, so we can just back it back out to 25 here, and we're back on level. So now you could do the same steps and go up and make it, let's say, 35 or whatever you want, 90. I don't care. And redo the steps. You could have even go back to your other one and paste back in your platform and adjust that accordingly for 35 degrees. But all this is the same throughout all of these parts. One interesting thing to know on a circle tube or whatever, let's say I was going to show you how to make a standoff. So we've got our octagon piece there, and you would center it up, but you wouldn't use a tube like I was doing to show you, and I'll realize that in a second, and you would you use a solid circle. But all that's, like you can see, everything just knocks one piece out of the other piece. So like I said, I would use a cylinder instead of sorry, a circle, not a pipe. And one thing to note about any kind of circular object is you'll see when I click it here, there's something that says how many sides. And I'll show you that in more detail here in a second. This was just a quick look at making like a standoff if you wanted to. Always make sure your knockout goes further both ways than the other if you're trying to punch all the way through. But that would be an idea, just roughly speaking of how quick and easy that kind of thing is. So on the cylinder, I'm going to show you here. If you look at um, that is how much fill the hole itself is. So the walls of that. So if you're doing some kind of mount that a screw is going in, you got to it's a little more difficult with the numbers because you got to calculate the wall to the OD to the ID and make sure you're setting that inner hole properly, and it's not really the best at that part. But sides is what I wanted to show you. As you'll note, I can set how many walls are on it and go all the way from a triangle to a nice smooth circle. Um, so again, it's something for free, and as it's called, TinkerCAD, that you can get for free and tinker with and create all kinds of things that maybe aren't out there that you'd like to see on your quad, from antenna mounts to anything like that. And all you simply need is a caliper and or a measuring stick or anything you got, and this free piece of software. And when you're done, you can save it out in Object or STL that you can bring into Cura and do it. So, all right, everybody, thanks a lot for watching the channel. I hope this is something good at all. I know it's not maybe feeling very RC, but that was the intent, was to show you what you can make for RC. And hopefully my parts will be here soon, and we'll get some other content up for you that's a little maybe more RC based. So, alright guys, thanks for watching the channel. Don't forget the contest. Don't forget to subscribe, like, all that good crap that I need down there to grow. And we'll get this one giveaway out, and we'll start working on our next one. Alright guys, thanks for coming.